My daughter screamed inside the sweltering car, while our HOA president stood arms crossed, blocking me from unlocking the door. "Rules are rules," Karen snapped, dangling my own spare key just out of reach as the windows fogged with heat. "I'm Maya Coleman, single mom, nurse, raising 6-year-old Zoe in a quiet Ohio subdivision we'd saved years to afford." Karen Whitfield ruled our HOA board like a queen, fining neighbors over mailbox paint and unmowed grass. She'd targeted me since I moved in, calling my second-hand minivan an eyesore lowering property values. Neighbors whispered she'd driven 3 families out with relentless fines, yet nobody dared challenge her openly. I kept my head down, paid every unfair fine, just wanting peace for Zoe's sake. Then Karen banned visible car seats in driveways, claiming it violated some aesthetic clause nobody had ever heard of. I laughed, assuming it was a joke, until an official warning letter arrived threatening a $200 fine. I parked in my own driveway to grab groceries, leaving Zoe buckled in for what I thought was 30 seconds. Karen appeared instantly, as if she'd been watching, and blocked my path back to the car. "You're violating the noise ordinance," she said, though Zoe's cartoon songs barely reached the sidewalk. I tried stepping around her. She grabbed my wrist, insisting I wait for the board's ruling first. The July sun blazed at 98 degrees, and I watched Zoe's cheeks flush pink through the glass. "Move, Karen. My daughter is in there," I said, panic cracking through my nurse's composure. She smiled coldly. "Then maybe next time you'll follow HOA guidelines like everyone else." I lunged for my keys in her hand. She yanked them back, tucking them into her cardigan pocket. Zoe pounded the window, tears streaking her face, her voice muffled but unmistakably terrified. A jogger slowed, phone rising to film, but Karen waved him off with practiced authority. "This is a private matter," she announced, as though blocking a child's rescue were HOA business. I screamed for help, and my neighbor Dale finally ran over, demanding Karen step aside immediately. Karen turned on him instead, threatening a fine for harassing a board member during official duties. Dale ignored her, wedging his body between us and buying me precious seconds I desperately needed. I finally wrenched free, grabbing my spare fob from my purse with shaking, sweat-slicked fingers. The door unlocked with a click that felt like the longest sound I'd ever heard. I pulled Zoe out, her shirt soaked through, her small body limp and overheated against mine. Dale called 911 while I doused Zoe with water bottles, praying I hadn't waited too long. Paramedics arrived within minutes, checking Zoe's vitals as I sobbed apologies she didn't deserve to hear. Karen stood nearby, arms still crossed, insisting to the officer that the mother overreacted. Zoe recovered by the ambulance, sipping electrolyte water, color slowly returning to her small face. The officer took my statement calmly, promising CPS would be notified given the severity of the incident. Karen retreated to her porch, watching everything through narrowed eyes, phone already pressed to her ear. I thought, foolishly, that this brush with disaster might finally humble her, might change something. Instead, 3 days later, a CPS worker named Renee Okafor knocked on my door for a wellness check. Someone had filed an anonymous complaint accusing me of leaving my child unattended in a hot vehicle. I stared at Renee, stomach dropping, realizing exactly who must have made that call. "I have witnesses," I said, my voice shaking. "She's the one who blocked me from Zoe." Renee remained neutral, professional, explaining she had to investigate every complaint regardless of circumstances. Over the next week, Karen rallied board members, painting me as an unfit, negligent parent. She posted in the neighborhood group chat, hinting darkly about concerning parenting patterns she'd observed. Former friends stopped waving, whispering instead, believing Karen's carefully seeded version of events. I felt Zoe's whole world tilting because one woman refused to admit her own cruelty. Dale offered to testify, but Karen threatened his home business permit through zoning connections she controlled. He backed off, apologetic, and I didn't blame him for protecting his own family. Renee kept visiting, gathering statements, her expression giving nothing away during each quiet interview. I started recording every HOA interaction, remembering how Karen always avoided cameras pointed directly at her. One evening, my elderly neighbor Ruth slipped a folder under my door. No note attached. Inside were years of complaints against Karen, dismissed by a board she personally handpicked and controlled. Ruth later admitted she'd kept records for years, terrified to speak up against Karen alone. "She did this to the Hendersons too," Ruth whispered, before they finally just moved away. I brought the folder to Renee, along with jogger footage Dale had quietly recovered and saved. The video clearly showed Karen blocking my path, pocketing my keys, ignoring Zoe's muffled screaming. Renee's expression finally shifted, something sharp and focused replacing her careful neutrality. "This changes things considerably," she said, already dialing someone from her car outside. 2 days later, Karen scheduled an emergency HOA meeting, likely sensing the ground shifting beneath her. She planned to publicly propose stripping my problem family of board voting privileges entirely. I walked into that meeting with Ruth's folder, Dale beside me, and Renee unexpectedly present. Karen smiled at the podium, unaware the story she controlled was about to collapse completely. "Before we vote," Karen announced, "let's discuss Maya Coleman's troubling neglect of her daughter." I stood, hands trembling but steady, and asked to play a short video for everyone. The footage rolled, Karen's hand closing over my keys, her voice dismissing Zoe's screams as noise. Gasps rippled through the room as neighbors realized what they'd almost believed without question. Karen scoffed, insisting the video was edited, but Dale confirmed the raw file's timestamp himself. Renee stood then, introducing herself officially as the CPS worker assigned to my case. "I came tonight to observe," she said, "but I've seen more than enough already." She announced she'd be filing a report recommending investigation into Karen, not into me. Karen's face drained white as murmurs turned from gossip into open, righteous anger. Ruth stood next, reading aloud every dismissed complaint Karen had buried over the years. The Hendersons, contacted beforehand, sent a letter confirming Karen had driven them out too. Board members who'd stayed silent suddenly found their voices, demanding Karen's immediate removal. A patrol officer, called earlier by Renee as backup, stepped through the community center doors. He approached Karen directly, citing the footage as evidence of child endangerment and unlawful restraint. "You're under arrest," he said, snapping cuffs on the woman who'd ruled us through fear. Karen shrieked about lawsuits and lawyers as neighbors watched, none moving to defend her anymore. The board dissolved Karen's presidency that same night, electing Ruth as interim chair unanimously. Karen faced charges for child endangerment, while civil suits from other families quietly began piling up. Now Zoe plays freely in our driveway, car seat visible, sunshine warm instead of suffocating, our peace finally reclaimed.